I'm Leanne Cordisco, and I'm so happy you're with me here today for Our Lives magazine. Today we're making pistol, which, if it sounds like pesto to you, you're very right. Pesto meaning basil and garlic. Pistol is an eggplant tomato dish that also uses basil and garlic. So at the Dane County Farmers Market, we've got these absolutely gorgeous tomatoes in season. We've got lovely eggplant in season. And if you're tired of making salsa, if you're tired of serving tomatoes with mozzarella and basil, here's another recipe for you. It's going to start by gently sauteing some green peppers and some onions in a little bit of olive oil. You'll notice I've got a fairly fine dice on the green pepper and the onion here. And I've got a pan that's already on heat. I'm adding a little bit of olive oil. And we're just going to put the green peppers and the onions in there and let them start to saute. We want a little bit of color on the green pepper and on the onion. We want each of the ingredients of this dish to cook individually. So we're just going to let this start cooking while we work on cutting down our tomatoes and our eggplants. I'm just going to give these green peppers and onions just a little bit of salt and one quick little shake of pepper. And let's let that cook for a while. So let's talk about the eggplant. The eggplant is nothing but a big, giant purple sponge. And to make this tasty, you have to get rid of some of the water that's stuck inside the sponge. And the easiest way to do that is salt it after you cut it. To cut the eggplant, take off its top, cut off the bottom, stand it upright, and then cut down the sides to get rid of the skin. I really like removing the skin when I'm using an eggplant. I think that when the skin cooks, it gets a little tough, and I don't want that texture in this dish. So, one last hanger on there, which is gone. Oh, another hanger on. You get the idea. So let's turn them sideways and cut nice planks out of this, which we're then going to cut into strips. And from the strips, give it another quick turn, and now we'll cut it into little cubes, nice little dice. That's what we're going to do to our eggplant. I've got some already salted, and what do I mean by salting an eggplant? Just like it sounds. Take a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon or two of salt, and once you've done that, just let it sit over a colander or let it sit on a cookie tray for maybe about 15 or 20 minutes until the moisture has a chance to be drawn out by the salt. I've got some here that I've already done. Let me get the salt off the cutting board. And here's one eggplant that I cooked about 20 minutes ago, that I cut about 20 minutes ago and salted, and you can see there's quite a bit of water that's been pulled out there already. Now that I've got color on the green pepper and the onion, we're going to pull it out of the saute pan and give the eggplant a chance to cook. Back on the heat. I'm going to turn this up to high. We want the eggplant to saute. And in it goes. We're not going to put any salt on this eggplant because it's been salted already. If you overcrowded this pan and you didn't have that nice saute sound, that sizzle, the eggplant could be steaming. And what's happening there is that you'll end up with a bitter taste in the eggplant rather than having a nice caramelized flavor. So, a few minutes. What we'll see is that it's already starting to get a little bit brown. While that's cooking down, let's cut up our tomatoes. You'll notice that I'm using a serrated knife to cut this tomato. And I find that a serrated knife is the absolute easiest for getting through a tomato skin. And I'm just going to put the ends aside, and then once I have these nice slices done with the serrated knife, I can move over to use a chef's knife and cut these up into a small dice very easily. It's not practical to use a serrated knife to do this kind of dicing. Now that our eggplant is caramelized, it's time to add in the tomatoes and let that cook down. So in go the tomatoes into the same pan. We're going to take the green pepper and the onion, put that back into the same pan. And just let it cook. Now that our eggplant and tomato and green pepper and onion have cooked down, you can see that the tomatoes have exuded all of their juices. It's reduced down, it's become a nice thick sauce almost. We're going to put that back on the stove over here, but turn the heat off. In essence, this is done cooking. What makes this dish really special, what makes pistol really special, is the fresh raw garlic and basil at the end of it. So literally all we need to do is make that pesto now. I'm going to do that with a couple of cloves of garlic and perhaps about half, 3/4 of a cup of basil leaves. You can do this in a mortar and pestle, you can do this in a blender, you can use a jarred pesto or buy some from the farmer's market, but it's super easy to make. And I'm just going to pass these cloves of garlic through the garlic press and then onto my cutting board here. And I'm going to clean off the bottom of the garlic press using the back of the knife so I don't damage the edge, cutting edge of the knife. And I'm going to mix that up, or cut that up, with these leaves of basil. So that just gets cut down and then cut it across. And we want to try to make this a fine paste. So we're going to do that by just running the knife through it a few times. You could perhaps add a little bit of salt. You could add a little bit of olive oil if you wanted to try to bring these together. But you can see in just a few passes of the knife how it's already starting to come together. So after a few seconds of mincing the basil with the garlic together, we've come up with a very crude pesto. And that's going to be added to our eggplant mixture now. So in a serving dish, we've got our pistol with the pesto. You can put that right on top. So here's our finished pistol. Take a look at this. It's gorgeous. You've got all these wonderful flavors, all these wonderful colors. You've got the fresh green from the basil. When you have this in your mouth, there's a little garlic punch. The tomatoes have cooked down with those caramelized eggplant. There's not a trace of bitterness in this dish. So let's try some. A little bite of bread, a little bit of pesto, a little bit of eggplant. It's just a little bit of fat. I hope you'll try this dish. I had a ton of fun bringing this to you. I'm Leanne Cordisco for Our Lives Magazine. See you next time at the Farmer's Market.